I stood in my son Derek's lavish living room, surrounded by his wife Amber, and several of her wealthy friends at their dinner party. Derek had just shouted at me, his face red with anger. "Say sorry, or get out of my house." The room went silent. Everyone stared. For weeks, I had endured Amber's manipulations and Derek's coldness. They accused me of upsetting her with my jealous behavior. I took a breath, looked directly at Amber, and said calmly, "I'll apologize, Amber. I'm sorry I discovered who you really are before you married my son." The shocked faces around me froze like someone had pressed pause on a movie. Amber's perfectly made-up face went white as paper. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Derek's business partner, Bradley, pulled out his phone, his fingers already moving across the screen. The other guests exchanged glances, their champagne glasses suspended halfway to their lips. But I should back up. You need to understand how I ended up in that room, saying those words that would change everything. 6 months earlier, my life looked completely different. I was comfortable, settled into my routine as a widow. My husband passed 3 years before, leaving me with a paid-off house 2 hours from the city and enough savings to live modestly on my retirement. I had raised Derek alone after his father died when Derek was just 12 years old. Those were hard years. I worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3 during the holidays, to put him through college. Watched him grow into a successful businessman. I was so proud of the man he had become. Then Derek called one Thursday evening in March. "Mom, I've got incredible news. I'm getting married." My heart soared, then dropped just as quickly when he said the next part. "Her name is Amber. We've known each other 4 months. The wedding is in 6 weeks." 4 months. 6 weeks. Something twisted in my stomach, but I pushed it away. Maybe I was being overprotective. Maybe this was what modern love looked like. Fast, certain, unafraid. I drove up for dinner to meet her the following weekend. Derek's apartment was in a nice part of the city, but not extravagant. He did well, but he lived within his means. I taught him that. The woman who opened the door was beautiful in that polished, expensive way. Perfectly highlighted hair, designer clothes, a smile that showed very white teeth. "Jackie," she said, pulling me into a hug that felt somehow cold despite the warmth of her arms. "I've heard so much about you." Something in her eyes didn't match her smile. They were calculating, measuring me like I was a problem to solve. But she said all the right things over dinner, complimented the pie I brought, laughed at Derek's stories about his childhood, touched his hand at all the right moments. Still, I noticed things. The way she interrupted him mid-sentence to correct details. How she made little jokes at his expense that made him laugh uncomfortably. When he mentioned his work, she said, "Derek is so modest. He doesn't tell people he's practically running his division," which was not true. Derek was a senior manager, successful but not an executive. Why would she exaggerate? The wedding came fast. Lavish, paid for by Amber's family money, she said. Her parents couldn't attend, she explained. They were traveling in Europe and couldn't change their plans. Red flag number 2, though I tried to ignore it. What parents miss their daughter's wedding? The first few months of their marriage seemed fine. Derek called less often, but newlyweds need their space. I understood that. Then November came, and my furnace died. The repair estimate was $7,000. I had $3,000 in savings. I sat at my kitchen table in my cold house, trying to figure out what to do, when Derek called. "Mom, you sound upset. What's wrong?" I told him. Tried to keep my voice light, like it was no big deal. "I'll figure it out, honey. Don't worry." "Absolutely not. Pack a bag. Come stay with us until you save up for the repair. We have 5 bedrooms. It's ridiculous for you to freeze while we have all this space." I hesitated. "Are you sure Amber won't mind?" "I'll talk to her. It's settled. Come this weekend." When I arrived at their new house, I understood why Amber had pushed for such a quick, expensive wedding. This wasn't Derek's apartment. This was a mansion in an affluent suburb. Stone facade, circular driveway, landscaping that probably cost more than my car. Derek met me at the door, grinning. Surprise. Amber's parents gave us the down payment as a wedding gift. Can you believe it? I could believe that Amber had told him that. Whether it was true was another question. Amber appeared behind him, her smile tight. "Jackie, welcome. Let me show you to your room." The guest room was bigger than my entire living room at home. Expensive linens, fresh flowers, a view of their pool. I felt out of place immediately. That first week, I tried to make myself useful. Offered to cook, to clean, to do anything to earn my keep. Amber refused every time, her voice getting sharper with each offer. "We have people for that," she said on the third day. "Just stay out of the way." Stay out of the way. In my son's house. I tried to connect with her, asked about her family, her childhood, where she grew up. She changed the subject every time, got irritated when I pressed even gently. One afternoon, I overheard her on the phone in her office. She was telling someone about her education, mentioning Yale. Later, when I was looking for a pen in her office, Derek having sent me to grab one, I saw her college diploma on the wall. Community college in Indiana, not Yale. A small lie. But why lie? I decided to try bonding differently. Brought out my photo albums one evening, suggested we look at Derek's baby pictures together. Amber sat down reluctantly. I opened the album, started telling stories. Then I said, "Maybe next time you can show me some of your family photos. I'd love to see pictures of you growing up." Her face changed. The pleasant mask dropped for just a second, and I saw something cold underneath. "My family is none of your business. Derek is my family now. You're just temporary." The words hit like a slap. I sat there, the photo album open on my lap, stunned into silence. She stood up and walked away. That night, Derek came to my room. His face was hard in a way I'd never seen before. "Mom, Amber said you were interrogating her about her past. Why can't you just be happy for me? Why do you have to dig into her life like she's a criminal?" I tried to explain. "I was just trying to get to know her, Derek. I asked about photo albums, that's all." She felt attacked, judged. Maybe staying here wasn't a good idea. I lay awake that night, my stomach churning. Amber had twisted a simple conversation into an attack, and Derek believed her without question. I was starting to realize that my son's wife was very, very good at manipulation, and I was trapped in her house, dependent on their charity, with nowhere else to go. I woke up the next morning determined to fix things. Maybe I had come across as intrusive. Maybe I needed to give Amber more space, more grace. I found her in the kitchen, her laptop open, coffee steaming beside her. "Amber," I said quietly, "I'm sorry if I made you uncomfortable yesterday. That wasn't my intention. I'll respect your boundaries." She looked up, her smile returning like someone flipping a switch. "Oh, Jackie, don't worry about it. I may have overreacted. Let's just start fresh, okay?" Relief flooded through me. Okay, fresh start. But fresh starts with Amber were like playing a rigged game. Over the next few weeks, small incidents began to pile up. First, Amber claimed I'd moved her jewelry. I hadn't touched her things. Then she told Derek I'd criticized her cooking. I had complimented it, told her the chicken was delicious. Next, she said I'd made inappropriate comments to their friends at a small gathering. I had barely spoken to anyone. Every time, Derek believed her. Every time, I defended myself and sounded like I was making excuses. I began to feel like I was losing my mind. Meanwhile, I was desperately trying to save money to leave. I applied for jobs. Retail positions, receptionist work, anything. But at 67, nobody wanted to hire me. Too old, though they never said it outright. They just never called back. I was trapped. Completely dependent on Derek and Amber's generosity, which was feeling less generous by the day. One afternoon, Amber was out at some charity luncheon. Derek was at work. I was alone in the house. I walked past Amber's office and noticed the door slightly open. I wasn't snooping. I was just walking by. But I saw papers scattered across her desk, and one caught my eye. Legal documents with her name. Amber Whitmore. Whitmore was her maiden name. I knew that much, but something about seeing it on official papers made me curious. Later that day, when I was alone in my room, I Googled the name, Amber Whitmore. The results made my blood run cold. News articles from 8 years ago. Embezzlement scandal at a financial firm in Ohio. Amber Whitmore, junior accountant, accused of stealing over $300,000 from client accounts. Charges were eventually dropped on a technicality, but the articles heavily implied guilt. Witnesses had come forward. Money had disappeared. Then the case fell apart on a procedural issue. I kept searching. Found more. Different states, different companies. Always financial irregularities. Always Amber leaving right before investigations concluded. A pattern that was impossible to ignore. My hands shook as I read. My son had married a criminal, or at least someone who had a very suspicious history with other people's money. I wanted to run to Derek immediately, show him everything. But I knew he wouldn't believe me. He'd think I was making it up, jealous, trying to break them up. I needed more evidence. Something concrete he couldn't deny. Over the next week, I started paying closer attention. Watched Amber more carefully. Noticed how she always grabbed the mail first, sorted through it before Derek saw it. How she kept her office locked when she wasn't in it. How she handled all their finances, insisted Derek didn't need to worry about the boring stuff. Then I got my chance. Derek and Amber's shared iPad was on the kitchen counter. Amber was upstairs showering. I picked it up, meaning to just move it out of the way. But the screen lit up, showing an email notification. From their bank. Large transfer completed. $25,000 moved to an account I didn't recognize. My heart pounded. I knew I shouldn't, but I opened the email, saw the account number. It wasn't one of Derek's business accounts. I'd seen those statements before. This was something else. I grabbed my phone and took pictures. The email, the account number, everything I could see before I heard the water shut off upstairs. I set the iPad down exactly where I'd found it, my hands trembling. I had evidence now. But I still didn't know what to do with it. 2 days later, my old friend Carol called. She was driving through the area, wanted to stop by for lunch. I was thrilled. I'd felt so isolated, and Carol had known me for 40 years. She'd known Derek since he was a baby. We had a lovely lunch in the formal dining room. Talked about old times, her grandchildren, my situation. I didn't mention my suspicions about Amber. It felt like airing dirty laundry. Then Amber came home early. Her face when she saw Carol was pleasant enough, but her voice had an edge. "Jackie, I didn't know you were having guests." "This is Carol," I said. "My oldest friend. I told you about her, remember?" Amber's smile was ice. "Of course. Nice to meet you, Carol." She turned to me. "Next time, please let me know when you're inviting people to our home." Carol left shortly after, uncomfortable with the tension. I apologized for cutting lunch short. She hugged me and whispered, "Be careful, honey. That woman has mean eyes." That evening, Derek came to find me. His face was stormy. "Mom, you can't just invite people over without asking. This is Amber's home." I tried to stay calm. "It was just Carol, Derek. She's known you since you were 3 years old." "That's not the point. Amber feels disrespected. You need to be more considerate." Something in me snapped. "She feels disrespected? Derek, I'm your mother. I raised you. I sacrificed everything for you. And now, I'm being treated like an unwelcome stranger in your house because your wife decided my oldest friend is an inconvenience? Don't make this about you," he said coldly. "If you can't follow the rules here, maybe you should find somewhere else to stay." I stared at my son. When had he become this person? This cold, controlled man who chose his wife's comfort over his mother's dignity? That night, I decided I needed to tell him about Amber's past. About the embezzlement, the pattern, the suspicious bank transfers. It would blow up my relationship with him, probably. But he needed to know. Even if he hated me for it, I had to try. The next morning, I worked up my courage. Found Derek in his study. Sat down across from him. "Derek, I need to tell you something about Amber. I know you won't want to hear it, but please listen." His face closed off immediately. "Mom, don't." I pushed forward. I found articles about embezzlement charges in Ohio. And I saw emails on your iPad. Large transfers to accounts I don't recognize. "Derek, I think Amber is stealing from you." He stood up. His face went red. "You went through our private emails? You're spying on us now?" I tried to show him the photos on my phone. "Derek, look at this. Just look at the evidence." He barely glanced. "These could be anything. You probably faked them. You've been against Amber from the beginning. You're so jealous you'd make up lies." "They're not lies. Check your accounts. Look at where your money is going." "Get out," he said quietly. "Get out of my study." "Derek, please. Get out." I stumbled back to my room, shaking. I'd played my hand too early. Without more proof, without something undeniable, I was just a jealous mother making wild accusations. That afternoon, while Derek was still at work, Amber came to my room. She didn't knock, just walked in and closed the door behind her. The look on her face was terrifying. The pleasant mask was completely gone. What I saw underneath was cold calculation. "You went through our iPad," she said softly. "You took photos." I tried to explain, to justify, but she cut me off. "You just made a very big mistake, Jackie. A very big mistake." She turned and walked out, leaving me frozen in place. I knew, with absolute certainty, that something terrible was about to happen. Amber wasn't just going to let this go. She was going to retaliate, and I had no idea how bad it was going to get. I barely slept that night. Every sound made me jump. I kept expecting Amber to do something, but the house stayed quiet, too quiet, the calm before the storm. The storm hit the next morning. I came downstairs around 8. Derek was already in the kitchen, but he wasn't getting ready for work. He was sitting at the island, his face dark with anger. Amber stood beside him, her hand on his shoulder, her expression a perfect mix of hurt and concern. The moment Derek saw me, he exploded. "How could you? How could you violate our privacy like that? Our trust?" I stopped in the doorway, my heart sinking. "Derek, let me explain. Amber says you broke into her locked office, went through her private files, took photos of confidential documents. Is that true?" The locked office was a lie. The door had been open. But I saw immediately that it didn't matter. Amber had already shaped the narrative. "I saw bank statements on the iPad," I said. "I was worried. I took pictures because I wanted to show you that money is disappearing." "You went through our private emails," Derek's voice cracked. "You snooped through our financial information without permission. Because I'm worried about you. Derek, please, just look at Amber's past. Look at the articles about the embezzlement case." "You mean the case where she was completely exonerated?" Amber cut in smoothly. "Where a vindictive boss tried to frame her and failed. I told Derek all about that before we got married. It was a horrible experience, being falsely accused. And now you're doing the same thing." I looked at my son. "You knew about Ohio?" "Of course I knew," he said. "Amber was honest with me from the start. She went through hell, and you're trying to use it against her. You're making up conspiracy theories because you can't accept that I'm married." "I'm not making anything up." I showed him my phone, the photos I'd taken. "Look at these transfers. $25,000 to an account I don't recognize." Derek barely glanced at the screen. "Those are legitimate business investments that I authorized. Amber manages our finances. She's better at it than I am. You're seeing things that aren't there because you want to believe the worst about her." I felt like I was drowning. Every piece of evidence I presented, Amber had already explained away. She'd gotten to him first, prepared him, made sure her version of events was the truth he believed. Then it got worse. There was a knock at the door. Derek went to answer it. 2 police officers stood on the porch. "We're looking for Jackie Henderson," one of them said. My stomach dropped. Amber stepped forward. "That's her." She pointed at me. "I'm the one who filed the report." The shocked faces around me froze like someone had pressed pause on a movie. Amber's perfectly made-up face went white as paper. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Derek's business partner Bradley pulled out his phone, his fingers already moving across the screen. The other guests exchanged glances, their champagne glasses suspended halfway to their lips. But I should back up. You need to understand how I ended up in that room saying those words that would change everything. The officers were professional but firm. They took my statement, asked why I would steal from my son and daughter-in-law. I tried to explain about the embezzlement, the suspicious transfers, but I could see them exchanging glances. Another elderly person making wild accusations. They didn't arrest me. Amber said she just wanted them to investigate, to scare me straight, but it was on record now. If she decided to press charges, I could face prosecution. After they left, Derek looked at me with disgust. "I can't believe you'd steal from us, Mom. After everything we've done for you." "I didn't steal anything. Amber planted those things in my room." "Why would she do that?" "Because I found out the truth about her. The only truth is that you've become bitter and paranoid. You need help." I tried calling Derek's aunt, his father's sister, Patricia. We'd always been close, but when I reached her, her voice was cold. Jackie, Derek already called me. He told me about your accusations, the theft, everything. I think you need to see a doctor, get some help. Patricia, please. You've known me for 30 years. Do you really think I'm capable of this? I think grief does strange things to people. Maybe losing John affected you more than we realized. She'd already been poisoned against me too. Over the next 2 weeks, I lived in a nightmare. Derek barely spoke to me. Amber was coldly polite, playing the gracious hostess who'd been wronged but was trying to forgive. I contacted a lawyer with what little savings I had left. She said if Amber pressed charges, I'd need at least $5,000 just to start my defense. I had $800 to my name. I tried reaching out to other family members, old friends. But Amber had already contacted them all. Told them I was having mental health issues, making wild accusations, becoming paranoid in my old age, maybe even showing signs of dementia. Nobody believed me. Nobody would help. Then came the dinner party. Amber announced it 3 days in advance. Important business associates, influential friends, a chance to network. She told Derek, "Make sure your mother stays in her room. I don't trust her around our guests." Derek agreed without hesitation. The night of the party, I sat in my room like a prisoner, heard the doorbell ringing, voices rising from downstairs. Laughter, conversation, the clink of glasses. I felt like a ghost in this house. Invisible, erased. Then I heard my name. I crept to my door, opened it slightly. The voices floated up from the living room below. "It's so difficult," Amber was saying, her voice carrying that perfect note of brave suffering. Derek's mother has been struggling with some mental health issues. Paranoia, accusations, erratic behavior, murmurs of sympathy from the guests. "We've tried to help her," Amber continued, "but she's becoming dangerous, making wild claims about me, saying I'm stealing from Derek. She even took photos of our private financial documents. The police had to get involved." Gasps from the audience. "We may need to look into a facility," Amber said sadly. "Somewhere she can get professional help. It breaks Derek's heart, but we have to think about our safety." A facility. She was telling people she was going to have me committed. Something inside me broke. I didn't think. I just moved. Walked down the stairs in my simple dress, my gray hair pulled back, no makeup. I looked exactly like what I was. An elderly woman, out of place among these polished, wealthy people. The conversation stopped. Everyone turned. Derek's face went white, then red. "Mom, what are you doing? I told you to stay upstairs." His tone, in front of all these people, was like he was scolding a disobedient child. I walked into the center of the room, looked at the faces staring at me, saw pity in their eyes. Poor, troubled old woman. Amber's eyes glittered with triumph. "It's all right, Derek. Your mother probably forgot. It's part of her condition." The guests looked at me with sympathy now. One woman actually said, "Oh, you poor dear." I tried to speak calmly. "I don't have a condition. Amber has been lying to all of you." Derek grabbed my arm, not gently. "That's enough. Apologize to Amber and our guests right now." I looked at my son, at the man I'd raised alone, worked 3 jobs to support, sacrificed everything for. He was gripping my arm hard enough to hurt, his face twisted with anger and embarrassment. "Say sorry or get out of my house." The words hung in the air. The room was completely silent. A dozen pairs of eyes watched us. Amber stood behind Derek, her face arranged in an expression of patient suffering. But her eyes were dancing with victory. I looked at those eyes, and something inside me shifted. I was done defending, done explaining, done begging to be believed. I straightened my spine, pulled my arm gently from Derek's grip, looked directly at Amber. "I'll apologize, Amber. I'm sorry I discovered who you really are before you married my son. I'm sorry I found the articles about your embezzlement charges in Ohio. I'm sorry I caught you transferring money from Derek's accounts to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. And I'm especially sorry that I took screenshots of everything and sent them to 3 different lawyers before you planted those items in my room." The room exploded. Amber's face went sheet white. Derek froze, his mouth open. A woman gasped. A man's drink splashed onto the expensive carpet. Amber recovered first, her voice shrill. "She's delusional. None of that is true. This is exactly what I've been talking about." But Bradley, Derek's business partner, was already on his phone. "What company in Ohio?" he asked me. I named it, gave him the year. Bradley's face changed as he read. "There are articles, multiple articles, all about embezzlement charges." His eyes lifted to Amber. "Why didn't you mention this when Derek introduced us?" "Because it was a false accusation," Amber said quickly. "I was cleared." "Charges were dropped on a technicality," Bradley read from his phone. "Not the same as being cleared." Other guests were pulling out their phones now, Googling, murmuring. The carefully constructed facade was cracking. Derek stood in the middle of it all, looking between me and Amber like he was watching his world collapse in real time. Amber started crying, perfect tears sliding down her perfect cheeks. "How could you do this to me, Jackie? In front of everyone? You've ruined me. You've always hated me. You're trying to destroy my marriage." Some guests looked sympathetic again. A crying, beautiful woman versus a bitter old lady. It was an easy narrative to believe. But Bradley kept reading. He looked up at Amber. "There are other articles here. Different states, different companies. All financial irregularities, all with you at the center." His voice was cold now. "All situations you left right before investigations closed." Derek finally found his voice. "Everyone needs to leave. Now, this is a family matter." The guests filed out quickly, awkwardly, already pulling out their phones to spread the gossip. Bradley was the last to go. He put a hand on Derek's shoulder. "Call me tomorrow. We need to talk." When the door closed, the three of us stood in the destroyed remains of the party. Amber was still crying, but her eyes were calculating. Derek looked shell-shocked. I stood alone on the other side of the room, exhausted, terrified of what came next. But for the first time in months, I had told the truth in front of witnesses. Whatever happened now, I wasn't backing down. The silence after the last guest left was suffocating. Derek stood in the middle of his destroyed party, expensive appetizers uneaten on silver trays, wine glasses abandoned on every surface. His face was pale, confused, angry. Amber had stopped crying. She watched me with an expression I couldn't quite read, calculation mixed with something darker. Derek spoke first, his voice barely controlled. "Everyone get some sleep. We'll deal with this in the morning." Deal with this? Like I was a problem to manage instead of his mother trying to save him. Amber turned to him, her voice soft and wounded. "I can't stay in this house tonight, Derek. Not with her. Not after what she did." "She's my mother," Derek said, but he said it like an obligation, not a defense. "Your mother just destroyed my reputation in front of your colleagues. Your business partners. She accused me of being a criminal." Amber's tears started again. "I've tried so hard to be patient with her, to help her, and this is how she repays us?" Derek looked at me. His expression was torn, but I could see which way he was leaning. "Mom, go to your room, please." I went. What else could I do? I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of the bed, listening to their voices rise and fall downstairs. Couldn't make out words, but the tone was clear. Amber was working on him, reshaping the narrative, making sure her version of events would be the one he believed. Morning came gray and cold. I heard Derek's car leave early for work, then nothing. The house stayed silent. I finally ventured downstairs around 10. All my belongings were packed in boxes in the foyer. Suitcases, bags, everything I owned in this house stacked neatly by the front door. A note sat on top, Derek's handwriting. "Mom, you need to leave today. I'll transfer $2,000 to your account for a deposit on an apartment. After last night, we can't have you here anymore. I'll call you in a few days when things calm down." $2,000 and a few days to calm down. After I'd tried to warn him, his wife was destroying him. I called him. It went straight to voicemail. Tried 3 more times. Nothing. I loaded my car with my boxes, my hands shaking so badly I could barely grip the handles. Drove away from that mansion with nowhere to go. Used my phone to find the cheapest motel in the area. $49 a night. I could afford maybe 3 weeks if I was careful. The room was small, dingy, smelled like old cigarettes and industrial cleaner. I sat on the scratchy comforter and finally let myself cry. Really cry. For my son who wouldn't listen. For the life I'd lost. For being 67 years old with $800 in savings and nowhere to call home. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I opened it. It was a legal document. A lawsuit. Amber was suing me for defamation and slander, claimed I had made false, malicious statements that damaged her reputation. The amount she was seeking made my vision blur. $200,000. $200,000. I didn't have $200. I called Derek again. This time he answered. "Did you know Amber is suing me?" His voice was cold as ice. "You did this to yourself, Mom. You made serious accusations in front of witnesses. There are consequences for that." "Derek, the articles I mentioned are real. You can look them up. Please, just check your bank accounts. Really look at where your money is going." Amber explained everything. The Ohio situation was a misunderstanding. She was vindicated. The transfers I saw were legitimate business investments that I authorized. "You saw what you wanted to see because you've never accepted her." I felt like I was screaming into a void. "Derek, please. I'm your mother. I've never lied to you. Why would I start now?" "Because you're jealous," he said simply. "Because you can't stand that I have a wife. A life that doesn't revolve around you. Amber said this would happen, that you'd get worse before you got better. I should have listened to her," Amber said. Everything came back to what Amber said. "I'm broke, Derek. I'm living in a motel. If she sues me for $200,000, I'll lose everything. Then maybe you should think about that before you make accusations." His voice softened slightly. "Sign the retraction, Mom. Admit you were wrong. Amber will drop the suit. We'll give you $10,000 to start over somewhere. You can have a fresh start. A fresh start built on a lie. On denying the truth I knew in my bones." "No," I said quietly. "What?" "I won't sign a lie. I won't say I made it up when I didn't." "Then I can't help you." He hung up. I sat in that motel room and felt the walls closing in. No money, no home. My son turned against me. Facing a lawsuit I couldn't possibly win. I tried to get work, applied everywhere, retail stores, grocery stores, coffee shops, but I was 67 with a gap in my employment history and no references. Store managers took one look at me and I could see the calculation. Too old. Won't be able to handle the physical demands. Probably can't learn new computer systems. One manager was honest enough to tell me the truth. "I'm sorry, ma'am. Someone called our corporate office about you. Said you were trouble, unstable. We can't take the risk." Amber was blacklisting me, making sure I couldn't work anywhere. The motel money ran out. I sold what little jewelry I had. My late husband's watch that I'd kept for Derek. My wedding ring. A necklace my mother gave me. Scraped together $1,200 total. The stress was destroying me. I wasn't sleeping, barely eating. One morning, I stood up to get dressed and the room spun. Next thing I knew, I was on the floor, the motel carpet rough against my cheek. The woman in the next room heard me fall, called 911. I woke up in the hospital. The doctor said it was a panic attack combined with exhaustion and malnutrition. They wanted to keep me overnight for observation. When I asked about the cost, the nurse looked sympathetic. "About $3,000, she said. "Unless you have insurance?" I didn't. A social worker came to see me, asked about my living situation. When I admitted I was staying in a motel, running out of money, she suggested a homeless shelter. Said it very kindly, like she was offering a solution instead of confirming my worst nightmare. I was 67 years old, worked my entire life. Raised a son alone, never took handouts, never asked for help, and now I was facing homelessness. Derek's Aunt Patricia finally returned one of my calls. I told her everything. About the hospital, the lawsuit, running out of money. For a moment, I thought I heard her voice crack. "Come stay with me in Florida," she said. "We'll figure this out together." Relief crashed over me so hard I started crying. "Okay, yes, thank you." I used my last money to buy a bus ticket. $250. Left me with 900 and change. The bus left in 2 days. The night before I was supposed to leave, Patricia called again. Her voice was strained, apologetic. "Jackie, I'm so sorry. I can't help you. Amber's lawyer called me this afternoon, said if I harbor you or assist you in any way, they'll include me in the defamation suit as an accessory. I can't risk losing my home. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The line went dead. I sat on the motel bed with my packed bag beside me and a bus ticket I couldn't use. Refund policies didn't apply to my ticket type. That $250 was just gone. $900 left. 3 days until the motel kicked me out. I thought about the document Derek wanted me to sign. The retraction. The lie that would make all this go away. $10,000, a chance to start over. All I had to do was destroy my own integrity. I picked up my phone, started to call Derek. Tell him I'd sign. Then I stopped. Because if I signed that document, admitted I'd made false accusations, what would happen to Derek? Amber would keep stealing from him, keep manipulating him. And maybe, eventually, he'd end up like those other men Catherine had mentioned. The husbands, who died young. Convenient heart attacks. Natural causes. I couldn't save myself by sentencing my son to death. I put the phone down. 2 days later, Derek showed up at my motel. I didn't expect to see him. When I opened the door, he looked terrible. Unshaven, exhausted, his expensive suit wrinkled. "Mom," he said, "I heard about the hospital, about Patricia." For one desperate second, I thought he'd come to help, to finally believe me. "Sign the document," he said instead. "Please, just sign it. Amber has agreed to pay your medical bills, too. And we'll make it $15,000 instead of 10. You can rent a nice apartment, start over. Just sign." I looked at my son, really looked at him, saw the lines of stress around his eyes, the way his hands shook slightly. He was scared. Not of Amber. Of the truth. "Do you believe her?" I asked quietly. "Or do you know the truth and just don't care?" His eyes shifted away. "I believe my wife." But his voice wavered. "Have you checked your accounts, Derek? Really looked at them? Amber handles our finances. She's better at it than me." "Because you don't want to look," I said sadly. "Because if you look, you'll see I was right. And that's too terrifying to face." Derek's face hardened. "You're so stubborn, so self-righteous. You'd rather be homeless than admit you were wrong. You're not the mother I remember. You've become bitter and jealous and small." His words cut deeper than any knife. "Stay away from us," he continued. "If you come near our house, Amber will get a restraining order. She's done being patient, and honestly, so am I." He walked out, didn't look back. I sat down on the motel bed and felt the last piece of my heart break. 3 days later, I was down to $400. The motel manager knocked on my door, apologetic but firm. I needed to leave. He'd already given me an extra day out of kindness. I packed my car with everything I owned, drove to a parking lot by a park, sat there as the sun went down, trying to figure out what to do next. Homeless shelter? Sleep in my car? How had it come to this? My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, almost let it go to voicemail. But something made me pick up. "Is this Jackie Henderson?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes. My name is Catherine Sterling. Amber was married to my brother 5 years ago in Pennsylvania. He died 6 months into the marriage. I've been trying to prove she killed him ever since. I saw your story online. Some of it got picked up by local news. I think I can help you, and I think you can help me." I sat in my car, the phone pressed to my ear, as Catherine told me about her brother Thomas, about his sudden death at 38, about 3 previous husbands across different states, all dead within a year of marriage, all wealthy, all natural causes. By the time she finished, I was shaking. Derek wasn't just married to a thief. He was married to a murderer, and I was running out of time to save him. I met Catherine the next morning at a diner off the highway. She was younger than me, maybe mid-50s, with sharp eyes and tired lines around her mouth. The kind of face that came from years of searching for answers nobody wanted to give. She brought a folder thick with documents, laid them across the table between us like evidence at a trial. "This is Thomas," she said, pushing a photo toward me. "My little brother, software engineer. Sweet guy, a little naive about women. Met Amber on a dating site. She was calling herself Andrea Morrison then. The woman in the photo next to Thomas looked like Amber. Same bone structure, same calculating eyes. But the hair was different. Brown instead of blonde. Glasses instead of contacts. Dressed down instead of designer labels. They got married 3 months after they met, Catherine continued. Thomas was so happy. Said he'd finally found someone who understood him. 6 months later, he collapsed at work. Heart failure, they said. He was 38 years old, ran marathons, no health problems. But the autopsy said natural causes, and that was that. She pulled out more photos, more men, more obituaries. This is Richard Chen, married Amber in California 4 years before Thomas. She was Amanda Collins then. Richard died of a heart attack at 42. No prior cardiac issues. This is Marcus Johnson. Married her in Texas 6 years ago when she was going by Amy Morrison. Found dead in his home, accidental overdose of his prescription medication. And this is David Patterson, Oregon, 7 years ago. Died in his sleep from cardiac arrest at 35. 4 men, all dead. All within a year of marrying the woman now living with my son. The police wouldn't investigate? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Catherine's laugh was bitter. Different jurisdictions, different states. Natural causes on every death certificate. By the time I connected the dots, Amber had disappeared. I hired a private investigator, but we couldn't get hard evidence. Can't exhume bodies without proof of foul play. Can't get proof without exhuming bodies. She shook her head. Amber is careful. Very, very careful. Until now, I said. Until she got comfortable. Made mistakes. Catherine leaned forward. That's why I need you. You were living in her house. You have access to her life in a way I never could. If we work together, maybe we can stop her before Derek becomes victim number 5. We spent the next hour making a plan. Catherine had contacts in law enforcement, people who'd listened to her theories even if they couldn't officially investigate. I had my screenshots of the financial transfers, knowledge of Amber's patterns, proof she'd planted evidence. We need to go public, Catherine said. Force the police to investigate. Create enough pressure that they can't ignore it. I contacted a local investigative journalist I'd found online. Young woman named Lisa Chen who specialized in financial crimes. I told her everything. She was skeptical at first, but when Catherine sent her the documents about the dead husbands, her whole demeanor changed. This is huge, Lisa said over the phone. If even half of this is true, this is national news. Give me 2 days to verify facts and check sources. Those 2 days felt like 2 years. I stayed with Catherine in her hotel room, both of us afraid to be alone. Afraid Amber would find out what we were doing and strike first. On the 3rd day, Lisa's article went live. Local socialites' dark past. Multiple dead husbands. Accusations of theft and fraud. The article was devastating. Lisa had done her homework. Connected all 4 previous marriages. Detailed the suspicious circumstances of each death. Included the embezzlement charges from Ohio. Added my accusations about the financial transfers and Derek. Within hours, it went viral. Local news picked it up. Then regional. By evening, it was on national news websites. My phone started ringing. Reporters wanting interviews. Catherine's phone, too. We ignored them all. Then Amber called me. Her voice was pure venom. You've destroyed me. My life is over. Everyone thinks I'm a murderer. I will sue you for everything you have. You'll rot in prison for what you've done. I surprised myself with how calm I sounded. Then sue me, Amber. Take me to court. Let's put everything under oath. Let's examine your finances, your past, all those dead husbands in front of a jury. I'd welcome that. She hung up, screaming. 2 hours later, Amber and Derek held a press conference. I watched it on Catherine's laptop, my stomach churning. Derek stood beside Amber in front of their mansion, microphones shoved toward them, cameras flashing. He looked terrible, pale, drawn, like he hadn't slept in days. These are vicious lies, Derek said, reading from a prepared statement. From a troubled woman who has harassed my wife and made false accusations for months. My mother is unwell. We've tried to help her, but she's refused treatment. Now she's trying to destroy my marriage and my wife's reputation. We're pursuing all legal options. Amber cried on cue. beautiful, broken tears sliding down her perfect face. She talked about overcoming a difficult past, finding love with Derek, being persecuted by a jealous mother-in-law. She was convincing. So convincing. I could see some reporters nodding sympathetically, but others looked skeptical, asked hard questions. Why were there so many previous marriages? Why did all those men die so young? What about the embezzlement charges? Amber's lawyer stepped in. Shut down the questions. No further comments at this time. Public opinion split down the middle. Some people believed Derek and Amber saw me as a vindictive old woman. Others looked at the pattern of deaths and thought where there's smoke, there's fire. The police finally opened an investigation into the previous husband's deaths, requested exhumation orders. Amber's expensive lawyers fought it, but the media attention made it impossible to ignore. Derek's business started suffering. Partners distanced themselves. Clients requested different account managers. His company's stock price dropped. The scandal was costing him millions. And Derek blamed me for all of it. He showed up at Catherine's hotel 2 weeks after the article published. The front desk called up, said someone was asking for me. Catherine went down first to check. Came back and said Derek was in the lobby, looking destroyed. I went down alone. Derek stood by the window, staring out at the parking lot. When he turned, I barely recognized him. He'd lost weight, had dark circles under his eyes. His hands shook. "Are you happy now?" he asked. "My business is tanking. Amber is falling apart. Our friends won't talk to us. All because of your lies." "They're not lies, Derek." He pulled out his phone, shoved it in my face, showed me news articles, social media posts, people calling Amber a black widow, a murderer. "Look what you've done. Look at the damage you've caused." I kept my voice gentle. "Derek, look at the evidence. 4 dead husbands, the money transfers, the embezzlement. Please just look at the truth. Coincidences, bad luck. You've always hated Amber. You couldn't stand that I was happy." Catherine came down then, stood beside me. "Your mother is trying to save your life," she said quietly. "My brother didn't listen either. And now he's dead." Derek looked at her like she was speaking a foreign language. "You're just as crazy as she is." His phone rang. Amber's name flashed on the screen. She was crying, I could hear it from where I stood, saying she needed him, couldn't handle this alone. Derek left, chose Amber again, walked away from the truth because it was too terrifying to face. That night, everything fell apart. Catherine's private investigator called. He'd found records. Amber's real name, her real history. Born Amanda Louise Brennan, grew up in foster care in Michigan. Institutionalized at 16 after she poisoned a foster sibling with antifreeze. The girl survived, but barely. Psychological evaluation. Antisocial personality disorder. Narcissistic traits. Complete lack of empathy. The records were sealed because she was a juvenile, the PI explained. I had to call in some favors, bend some rules. You can't use this in court, but you can use it to force her hand. We decided to confront Amber directly. Bring everything out in the open. Force a confession or at least make her sloppy enough to make a mistake. Catherine called the detective working the case. Explained what we were going to do. He agreed to park nearby, in case things went wrong. We drove to Derek and Amber's mansion at dusk. My heart hammered so hard I thought it might burst through my chest. Derek answered the door. His face when he saw us was shock, then anger. "What are you doing here?" Catherine pushed past him. "We need to talk. All of us. Now." We walked into the living room. The same room where I'd stood at that dinner party weeks ago. The same room where everything started. Amber appeared at the top of the stairs. The look on her face when she saw us made my blood run cold. Pure hatred. No mask, no pretense. Just cold, calculating fury. "Get out of my house," she said softly. Catherine laid the folder on the coffee table. Opened it. Spread the documents across the expensive surface. Photos of dead men, death certificates, financial records. The psychological evaluation from when Amber was 16. "We know everything," Catherine said. "Every marriage, every death, every penny you stole. We know about Michigan, about what you did to that foster girl. We know who you really are, Amanda." Amber's face went white, then red, then eerily calm. Derek stood frozen, looking at the papers spread across his coffee table. His hands shook as he picked up one document, then another. "This can't be real," he whispered. Amber moved down the stairs slowly. "Prove it," she said. "Prove any of it. Those records are sealed. You accessed them illegally. They're not admissible in court." "We don't need court," I said. "We just need Derek to see the truth." Derek was reading the psychological evaluation, his face getting paler with every line. "You poisoned someone?" Amber's laugh was sharp, ugly. "I was 16, troubled, acting out. It doesn't mean anything now." Derek picked up another document. Thomas Sterling, dead at 38. He looked at Catherine. "Your brother?" She nodded. "Richard Chen, Marcus Johnson, David Patterson." Derek's voice cracked. 3 more. All dead. All married to you. "They were weak," Amber said. Her voice had changed completely. Flat, cold, the mask, finally, fully off. They were lonely, desperate men with more money than sense. Derek stared at her like she was a stranger. "Did you kill them?" For a long moment, Amber said nothing, just looked at him with those cold eyes. Then she smiled. "What do you think, Derek?" The silence that followed was deafening. Derek dropped the papers like they'd burned him. His face went through a dozen emotions at once: shock, denial, horror, and finally something that looked like the beginning of understanding. "What do you mean? What do I think?" His voice was barely a whisper. "Amber, tell me you didn't. Tell me these women are lying." Amber walked down the rest of the stairs slowly, deliberately. She moved to the bar cart, poured herself a drink, took a long sip before turning back to face us. "You want the truth, Derek?" "Fine. Yes, I married wealthy men. Yes, I took their money. They were pathetic, lonely, so desperate for someone to love them that they never questioned anything. Just like you." Derek stumbled backward like he'd been physically hit. Catherine's voice was shaking with rage. "You killed my brother." Amber shrugged. "Prove it." "They all died of natural causes. Heart attacks, cardiac arrest, accidental overdoses. Tragic, yes. Suspicious? Not according to 4 different medical examiners in 4 different states. But you caused them," I said. "Somehow you caused those deaths." Amber smiled at me. That calculating, cold smile. "You know what's fascinating about the human body, Jackie? How fragile it really is. The heart especially. So many things can go wrong. Stress, diet, undiagnosed conditions. And certain substances, in small doses over time, can create the perfect storm. Untraceable, natural-looking." It was a confession. Vague enough to maintain deniability, but clear enough that we all understood. Derek's face had gone gray. "You killed people. Multiple people. For money." "I took what they owed me for putting up with them," Amber snapped. "For pretending to love boring, mediocre men who thought money could buy devotion. They were means to an end." "And what am I?" Derek asked. His voice broke. "What was I to you?" Amber looked at him for a long moment. Then she laughed. Actually laughed. "You were supposed to be my retirement plan, Derek. One last big score and then I was done. Your business, your investments, your trust fund. I'd have been set for life. But then your mother had to stick her nose where it didn't belong." I watched my son's heart shatter in real time. Every word from Amber's mouth was a hammer blow. He swayed on his feet. "Did you ever love me?" he whispered. "Even a little?" Amber tilted her head, considering. "You were better in bed than Thomas. I'll give you that. And less annoying than Richard. But love?" She laughed again. "Please, Derek. You were a target. That's all you ever were." Derek made a sound like a wounded animal, lunged forward. Catherine grabbed his arm, held him back. "She's not worth it," Catherine said. "Let the police handle it." Amber's eyes flashed. "The police can't touch me. Everything I did was legal. Moving money between accounts Derek gave me access to, that's called financial management. My previous husband's dying of natural causes? Tragedy isn't a crime. You have no proof, no evidence, no case." "We have your confession," I said. I held up my phone, been recording since we walked in the door. For the first time, Real fear flickered across Amber's face. But she recovered quickly. Inadmissible. Recorded without consent, in a two-party consent state. Your lawyer will tell you that. Catherine pulled out her phone. Good thing I had Detective Morrison on speaker the whole time. He heard everything, from outside the property line, where he didn't need a warrant. The color drained from Amber's face. The front door opened. Detective Morrison walked in with two uniformed officers. Amber Whitmore, he said. Or should I say Amanda Louise Brennan. You're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and we'll be adding murder charges once we complete the exhumations. Amber's eyes went wild. She looked around like a trapped animal, tried to run for the back door. The officers caught her easily. As they cuffed her, she started screaming. You can't prove anything. I want my lawyer. This is harassment. Derek, tell them. Tell them I didn't do anything wrong. Derek stood silent, tears streaming down his face, unable to look at her. As they led Amber out, she twisted back to look at me. Her face was pure venom. This is your fault, Jackie. All of it. You destroyed everything. I hope you're happy. The door closed behind them. The house fell silent. Derek collapsed onto the couch, his head in his hands. He sobbed, deep, wrenching sobs that shook his entire body. I moved toward him, but Catherine put a hand on my arm, shook her head. Let him process it. We sat in that living room for what felt like hours, but was probably only 20 minutes. Derek cried until he had no tears left. Then he just sat there, staring at nothing. Finally, he looked up at me. His eyes were red, swollen, devastated. You tried to tell me, he said hoarsely. For months you tried to warn me. And I called you crazy. I chose her over you. I let her convince me you were the problem. I sat down beside him. Not too close. Gave him space. You were manipulated by a professional, Derek. Someone who's been doing this for years. It's not your fault. It is my fault, he said. Because even when you showed me evidence, I didn't want to see it. It was easier to believe you were jealous than to face the truth. I was a coward. You were in love, Catherine said gently. Love makes us blind sometimes. I defended her over my own mother, Derek continued. I let her sue you, blacklist you, drive you to homelessness. I stood by while she destroyed your life. His voice cracked. How can you ever forgive me? I don't know if I can, I said honestly. You hurt me, Derek. Deeply. You broke my heart. He nodded, accepting that. I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. I don't want grand gestures, I said. I want my son back, the real one, the one who was raised to value truth and integrity over comfort. I lost him somewhere, Derek said. In trying to be successful, to have the perfect life, the perfect wife. I forgot what actually matters. Will you help me find him again? I reached out, took his hand. We can try. The weeks that followed were a media circus. Amber's arrest made national news. The investigation into the previous husband's deaths went public. Exhumations revealed traces of rare poisons in 2 of the bodies. Thomas had digoxin toxicity levels consistent with long-term poisoning. Marcus had unusual compounds in his system that suggested deliberate overdose of his heart medication. Forensic accountants traced Amber's financial crimes across 6 states. She'd stolen over $4 million total from various victims. Some of the men had families who'd always suspected foul play but couldn't prove it. Now they finally had answers. Amber's trial became one of the most watched in the country. She was convicted on 3 counts of murder, multiple counts of fraud, embezzlement, and theft. The judge sentenced her to 3 consecutive life terms without possibility of parole. I watched the sentencing on television from Catherine's living room. Amber showed no emotion as they led her away, just stared straight ahead, her face blank. She'll die in prison, Catherine said quietly. It won't bring Thomas back, but at least it's justice. Derek had a harder road. The scandal destroyed his business. He lost clients, partnerships, his reputation. The board of his company asked him to resign. He liquidated his remaining assets, divided the money between Amber's victims and their families, gave up the mansion, the expensive cars, the designer clothes. He moved into a small apartment in a modest neighborhood, took a job as a junior analyst at a different firm, starting over from near the bottom, learning to live simply again. We had dinner together once a week. At first, it was awkward, painful, too much hurt between us to pretend everything was fine. But slowly, week by week, we rebuilt something. Not what we had before, that was gone, but something new, more honest, built on truth instead of obligation. I used my portion of the recovered money to rent a small house. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. I started volunteering at a women's shelter, helping domestic abuse victims recognize manipulation tactics. Became an advocate for elder financial abuse awareness. My story got picked up by advocacy groups. I did speaking engagements, talked about red flags, about trusting your instincts. Catherine and I became close friends. We traveled together to victim advocacy conferences, testified at hearings about financial crimes against the elderly, turned our trauma into purpose. 6 months after Amber's conviction, Derek came to my house for dinner. I'd made pot roast, his favorite from childhood. We ate mostly in silence. Then Derek set down his fork. "I've been in therapy," he said, "trying to understand how I let it happen. How I became someone who could treat his own mother that way." "What does your therapist say?" "That I was groomed. That Amber saw my weaknesses and exploited them. My need for approval, my fear of being alone, my desire to prove I was successful. She targeted those things deliberately." "That's true," I said. "But you also made choices. You chose to ignore red flags, to believe her lies over my truth. You have to own that part too." He nodded. "I know. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'll never be able to apologize enough for what I put you through." "I don't need constant apologies, Derek. I need you to learn from this, to be better, to never let fear make you cruel again." "I'm trying," he said. "Every day, I'm trying. People ask me now if it was worth it. Losing my son's trust, my home, my security, nearly losing everything to expose the truth. And I tell them this: truth is never convenient. It's rarely comfortable. Sometimes it costs you everything you hold dear, but lies destroy from the inside out. They rot foundations, poison relationships, and eventually collapse under their own weight anyway. The question isn't whether the truth is worth the cost. The question is whether you can live with yourself if you choose the lie. I learned that standing up for what's right doesn't guarantee you'll be believed. Sometimes it means standing alone. Sometimes it means losing people you love, at least temporarily. Sometimes it means facing bankruptcy, homelessness, public humiliation. But compromising your integrity to keep the peace isn't peace at all. It's just slow surrender of your soul. I also learned that love can blind us. My son loved Amber so desperately he couldn't see who she really was. And in trying to protect that love, in choosing comfort over truth, he nearly lost his life and definitely lost himself. Real love doesn't ask you to ignore warning signs. It doesn't demand you choose between the person you love and your own judgment. Love that requires you to abandon your instincts isn't love. It's manipulation wearing love's mask. Most importantly, I learned it's never too late to fight back. At 67 years old, broke, alone, sleeping in my car, I could have signed that document. Could have taken their money, admitted to lies I never told, and disappeared quietly into whatever small life they'd allow me. Many people would have. Most people probably would have. And I don't judge them for it. Survival is a powerful instinct. But I'm proud I didn't. Not because I'm special or particularly brave, but because I remembered something my late husband told me years ago when I was struggling with a difficult decision at work. The hardest thing and the right thing are usually the same thing. When choosing feels easy, you're probably taking the wrong path. Derek is back in my life now. We have Sunday dinners, take walks together, talk about real things instead of surface pleasantries. But it's different. He's different. He had to face the consequences of his choices. Had to rebuild from nothing. Had to look in the mirror every morning and acknowledge that he betrayed the person who loved him most in the world. That he chose a beautiful lie over an ugly truth because it was easier on his ego. That's a hard journey. The kind that changes you permanently. You can't come back from that and be the same person. Derek isn't the same. He's humbler now, more careful, less quick to judge. He questions his own judgment in a way he never did before. Sometimes I see him watching me, and I know he's thinking about those months, about what he did. The guilt lives in him permanently now. Is that what I wanted? No. I never wanted my son to carry that weight, but it's the price of his choices. And maybe it will make him a better man, more thoughtful, more willing to listen when people he trusts raise concerns, less susceptible to manipulation. As for Amber, she writes letters from prison sometimes. Derek gets them. He doesn't read them, just marks them return to sender. I asked him once if he was curious what she has to say. He told me no, that whatever words she writes are just more manipulation, more attempts to control the narrative. He's done giving her any power over him. She'll spend the rest of her life behind bars. 3 murder convictions, 27 counts of fraud and embezzlement. The judge called her a danger to society, a predator who targeted vulnerable people with sophisticated manipulation techniques. No possibility of parole. She's 42 now. She'll die in prison. Sometimes I wonder if she feels remorse. If somewhere in that cold, calculating mind there's a spark of human empathy that regrets the lives she destroyed. But I don't think so. People like Amber don't feel remorse the way the rest of us do. They feel angry they got caught. They feel frustrated their plans failed. But genuine guilt for the harm they caused? I don't think that's in them. My life now is simple but good. I sleep in my own bed in my own small house. I spend time with friends, with Catherine, with Derek when he's not working. I volunteer at the women's shelter 3 days a week. Help women recognize the signs I missed for too long. Teach them that their instincts matter, that doubt isn't the same as paranoia, that questions aren't accusations. Some of them remind me of myself. Older women, dismissed by family members who think they're being overprotective or jealous or confused. I tell them my story. Show them it's possible to fight back, even when it seems hopeless. That being alone is better than being with people who make you doubt your own sanity. I sleep well now. Not on silk sheets in a mansion, but on clearance sale bedding in my small rented house. But I sleep with a clear conscience. And that, I've learned, is the most valuable thing you can own. You can't buy it, can't fake it, can't borrow it from someone else. It's earned through choices, through doing the right thing, even when it costs everything. To anyone out there facing something similar, dealing with a manipulative family member, a toxic relationship, someone who makes you question your own judgment, remember this. Your intuition is not your enemy. When something feels wrong, it usually is. Don't let anyone convince you that your instincts are jealousy or paranoia or mental illness. Trust yourself, even when everyone else says you're wrong, even when it's easier to go along, even when standing firm costs you relationships and security and peace. Your internal warning system exists for a reason. Millions of years of evolution designed it to keep you safe. Listen to it. And don't ever, ever compromise your integrity for comfort or convenience. The price is too high. The cost to your soul is too great. Stand up, speak truth, fight back, even when it costs you everything. Especially then, because in the end, the only person you have to face in the mirror every morning is yourself. Make sure you can look that person in the eye. Make sure when you're my age, looking back on your life, you can say you stood for truth, even when it hurt, even when you stood alone, even when everyone called you crazy. That's worth more than any mansion, any amount of money, any relationship built on lies. I sit on my small front porch most mornings now. Drink my coffee, watch the sunrise. It's not the life I expected at 67. I thought I'd be traveling with my husband, visiting Derek and grandchildren I don't have, enjoying comfortable retirement. Instead, I'm rebuilding from nothing, living on a tight budget, working part-time at the shelter just to make ends meet. My son and I are slowly, painfully finding our way back to each other. My name was dragged through mud on national television. I have scars that will never fully heal, but I chose this. Not the circumstances, but the response. I chose truth over comfort, integrity over peace, standing alone over going along, and I'd make the same choice again. This morning, Derek pulled up in his modest used car, got out carrying a bag of groceries. Thought I'd make you breakfast, Mom, if that's okay. I smiled. I'd like that. As we walked inside together, I looked back at the sunrise painting the sky pink and gold. It was beautiful, simple, real. That's my life now. Not fancy, not comfortable, but mine. Earned through fire and truth and refusing to bend. And that's enough. More than enough. It's everything. So let me ask you something. Have you ever had to stand up for the truth when everyone told you that you were wrong? Have you ever faced a situation where doing the right thing cost you everything? How did you find the strength to keep going? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Your experiences might help someone else who's facing their own impossible choice right now. If this story resonated with you, if it reminded you to trust your instincts or gave you courage to speak your truth, please hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more stories about ordinary people facing extraordinary challenges. Share this with someone who needs to hear that they're not crazy for questioning things that don't add up. Thank you for listening to my story, for sitting with me through the hard parts, for letting me share what I learned from the worst period of my life. I hope it helps you in some small way. I hope it reminds you that you're stronger than you think, that truth matters, that your voice matters. Stay strong, trust yourself, and never, ever let anyone make you doubt what you know in your bones is true. Take care of yourselves. And remember, the hardest thing and the right thing are usually the same thing. Choose the hard thing. Choose truth. Choose integrity. Every single time.